Welcome to Scaling with Purpose, the show where we explore what it takes to build companies that aim for commercial success and meaningful impact. I'm joined today by Michael Hillhorst, founder of trein-vertraging.nl. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite.
Yes, when I was preparing this episode, I was asking myself, what motivated you to become an entrepreneur? How did this journey start?
Yeah, I think as we are currently talking about treinvertraging, it could have been any other topic, to be honest. We have success with treinvertraging. That's why currently today we're talking about treinvertraging. But no, it started very early, actually. I started actually when I was 13 years old with selling designs. And I always had the feeling at a young age already that like a normal job was not it for me. So my parents, they always said, why don't you go to the supermarket and work in the Albert Heijn in the local grocery store? But I always refused to do it. I always found my ways online to make my zakcentje in Dutch they call it, like pocket money. And from there, actually, I always have been interested in building stuff online, building services online. And this has been going on since approximately 2015, I would say, when I really got into programming. And from there, I started several ventures, where one is kind of interesting to mention, which is actually a online software platform that we built to help gamers actually to build their own kind of like virtual gaming website where they can sell and trade their own virtual gaming items. So, for example, in Fortnite, you have these skins. Well, we supported people who wanted to actually create their own digital software platform where people could trade those for coins.
Oh, yeah. So, not to create games, but to create a platform to sell those items or to trade those
Exactly.
items, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Correct.
So, it's a secondary market or something like that.
Correct. Yes, and that was around the age of 16, and from there, at around the age of 18, I went to university, and from there, basically, we kind of quickly rolled into treinvertraging at some point.
Yeah, interesting. It's also a very, very studentish kind of startup, right? So I can imagine that you were a student, you were going with the train, and you were like, "This doesn't work for me." So tell me,
Correct.
how did that start?
Yeah. So basically, me and my co-founder Dan, we both traveled to our university by train in the beginning, before we actually lived in the city of Utrecht where we studied.
Oh yeah,
And we did experience a lot of train delay, as we had to come from a small village and this train was often broken. And we wondered, why is it so hard to get your money back? Because we knew that it was possible to get your money back. However, we noticed that if you wanted to get your money back, you needed to fill in forms. Not only fill in the forms, but you also needed to know exactly at what time the train left, when did
yeah,
the train left, what time would the train have arrived. And all of this information is quite cumbersome. And from there, we thought, well, why not automate it? Because we both were computer science students or information science, kind of the same. And that was the moment we thought, well, why not automate it? And from there, actually, it started all.
yeah. Beautiful. It's actually interesting what you're saying because it's a problem you have lived yourself, right?
Yes,
And I see that a lot of good startups start with a problem that the founder himself experiences. So you understand the feeling, you understand the exact details of the problem, and you can provide the right solution that fits the audience that is experiencing this issue. So that's beautiful. But yeah, in the Netherlands, you have a lot of delays, right? Is it did you do some study to compare that with other countries or
well, actually, it's quite funny, but in the Netherlands, we are doing very well with the trains. So in the Netherlands, we have a punctuality rate of around 95%, which basically means that a lot of trains are actually running quite well. The thing is, however, the Dutch people like to complain a lot, and that's why there's some general sense around in the media or online or
yeah,
wherever you are. Actually, people always try to blame the train operator in the Netherlands. However, compared to, for example, Germany or France or Spain, we are actually doing very well. For example, in Germany, we have around 1 in 3 trains that are delayed. So
Oh,
that's
that's
around
wrong.
66% punctuality compared to the 95 in Holland. So I would say we are actually very lucky to have the NS in the Netherlands and that they're doing quite well. However, it can always be better. And I think we are here to make sure that we keep them sharp, basically.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I think it's about rights, right? It doesn't matter how many times it happens, but it's your money that you need to retrieve, and that is
Correct.
in the end what you're helping people do.
Yes, correct. So basically, the where we are built on is a legal framework from the European Union, actually, which was created to protect passenger rights. And why was it needed? Well, if you look at, for example, the flight industry, where you have similar ruling, for example, you might be delayed on an airport and you have to wait for the next flight, which can take up to 4 hours or 5 hours of waiting time, and you would get compensated by the airline for this. Well, this ruling was not in the US. And if you actually compare what has happened in the US and in Europe, you see that the European airlines have been focusing way more on improving their punctuality rate and making sure there are less delays and less cancellations because they got punished, of course, with this regulation for paying the customer. However, in the US, you see that the delays are still very high. And that is because they don't have any incentive to improve this delay and cancellation rate. So the same actually is applied to the trains a few years later, and this regulation is the same across Europe. And this is something we also built on in the Netherlands.
Yeah, beautiful. So there is some kind of accountability system in place that makes sure that the KPIs are not just numbers on a dashboard, but they are felt by these train businesses. Yeah, beautiful.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so what I was curious about is, of course, you start the startup with a certain idea in mind, and then you see the world in a certain way, and then when you build a startup and it starts to run, then you could also evolve your thinking about the problem. Is that something you have experienced? Do you see the problem a little bit differently now in comparison with what you had in the beginning?
So I think it has been a lot of trial and error in our run. And we started off the company basically having more interest in the technical side of things. Meaning we like to make a good UI for the customer, make a very nice backend system. And it was also basically just some project we could work on to improve our own software engineering skills.
Yeah.
So it was very tech oriented. Whereas nowadays it's more business driven, meaning everything we do has some business requirements or yeah, basically it's more business oriented. Whereas in the beginning we were way more tech oriented, meaning also, for example, that in the beginning we would over engineer things before releasing them, whereas now we tend to go way more in an iterative process.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to extract value from the business side and then translate that to the tech instead of building beautiful tech products, right? Yeah.
Correct. I think it's something a lot of people experience, and it's a never ending problem, I guess.
Yeah, there are good books written about this subject. I mean, the lean startup
Yeah, a classic.
is, of course, a classic one that has been written around the startup INVU, and he went through the same journey, and then in the end, he this yeah, he extracted this knowledge and put it in a book, and now we have the lean startup methodology, which is exactly what you're
Yeah,
explaining now. Yeah,
and it's
beautiful.
something like, or you read the book up front, or you reinvent the wheel while building. I guess everybody would at some point fall into the traps and the problems related to yeah, having a startup basically.
Yeah, and learning means failing
Yeah,
enough
definitely.
times
Yeah.
to know when not how not to fall, right? Yeah, wonderful. All right, and then you had this idea, and then you build the tech, and then how did you market it?
Yeah, so was the big problem. As I just mentioned, we were tech oriented in the beginning. We first built a platform without even knowing how are we going to market this. So I think we started around 2022 with actually the development and the first customers actually came only in 2024, meaning 2 years spent just building. But it was not a full-time job building, but just, occasionally working on it. We had some other projects. But at some point in 2024, in the first quarter, we saw, okay, well, this might be something, because we started sending it around to friends and family, and they actually like to use it, and they were sending it also to their friends again. So we were seeing some accumulation of user growth, but it was nowhere near anything very big. So Dan and I basically thought, okay, how are we going to market this across a broader audience? And we didn't have any plan. We didn't have any experience with B2C marketing before, or paid ads, or any organic type of attraction. So what we basically simply did was just contact the newspapers,
Oh yeah.
just through the traditional channels, and see, hey, we are two students. If you're a student, you have some, like, they would are tend to help you a bit more. And we just came up with the story that we had, of course, with the trains. And from that point, we noticed that we found some type of way to actually get newspapers hooked upon our idea. So we would basically get into the newspaper team, look up all the people who work there. We try to pick the people who were like interns, because they were more tending
Yeah.
to respond to us. And we actually got some publications this way. And we would also try to use the FOMO strategy, meaning once a newspaper said, hey, we want to do this with you, another one would come. And we would say, hey, we had this newspaper item. It went quite well with this newspaper. Is this something you would also like to do? And this was actually really the first moment things started to, yeah, blew up. So from that point on, we started gaining new customers every day. And I think we reached around the 10,000 users mark within 4 weeks since the first publication. So the first publication till the fourth week, we had, I think, one TV appearance, five newspaper articles. So it was quite a lot of stuff happening in the first month. So this I would say, is really how we got our first 10,000 paying customers, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think, especially the idea you have, and that it's interesting for a broad audience. I mean, a lot of people go with the train in the Netherlands. I think that makes it also a little bit, uh, yeah, more potential to go viral. It has more potential to go viral because
Yes.
the audience is very, very typically, it's not a niche audience. No, it's a very broad audience. So the newspaper PR typically attracts a lot of viewers from the broad audience, and this is a beautiful way to market such a product. I like that.
Yes. Yeah, I would like to add to it that quickly after we started noticing that traditional newspaper media outlets are not the way to actually grow. It's a
Yeah,
nice booster. However, we also learned very quickly that this is not the way to move forward,
it's
because we
not
noticed
sustainable.
it's not scalable. You don't have the luck that you will always be in a newspaper. There's always just this first time, of course, and people find the first time very interesting. And that was actually the second chapter of how will we grow further. So we had these news media outlets um, promoting us, but how can we grow further? How do we go from the 10,000 to the 100,000? So yeah, it was a good one for the first part, but for the second part, I would say we really focused on the big problem we had is a newspaper article would give us a spike in marketing. It would just gain us, like, 1,000, 2,000 new customers. But then the next day it would be very little again, because we didn't have any marketing machine running for scaling the system, basically. So that was the point we started learning about organic content producing online, through LinkedIn, through short content, SEA, SEO, all these kinds of stuff, like the known channels, is where we started to dig into and understand how can it work for us. And from there, we started doing paid ads, all kinds of stuff, which is what we still do nowadays. But it helps us at least to maintain a healthy user growth. So we try to grow still every day between the 100 and 500 users, so 500 customers per day.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, so we try to maintain somewhere like 300 is our aiming point. If we do below 300, we are doing bad. If we do higher than 300, we're doing good. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
how we grow.
And of course, if we're talking about a big user base, then even a small churn will be a big piece. Will result in a large amount of levers, right?
Yes. So the thing is, we don't have a lot of churn.
Oh,
We
beautiful.
actually have only a churn rate of, I would say, I believe it's under the 1%. So as you see, I don't even have the numbers in my head because it's not a KPI we need to focus on because it's very little. It's so that's quite good. And why that is because our platform is free, of course. So we only charge at the moment that we receive compensation for your delay. And we take a no cure, no pay model, we take 25% of it. So that's why, as far as I'm aware, we have a low churn.
Yeah. And then at the moment in time, you had to hire people. How did
Yes.
that go?
Well, actually, so one funny thing I read this week was the Elon Musk mentioning the Twitter team size. So they went from 7,500 engineers, 7,500 engineers, and nowadays they just have less than 30. I found that a very huge accomplishment. Of course, it has its like disadvantages,
Of
definitely,
course,
but
of
like
course.
what like the thing is here, the bridge to our story is we try to be just with the two of us as long as possible without that it was having an issue on the scaling, so growing. As long as we were able to do stuff without us slowing the company down, it was fine. However, at one point, we had to make a choice. Are we going to stay in the Netherlands and just focus on the Dutch market and try
Yeah,
to grow our product here, or are we
yeah,
going
exactly.
internationally? And this point is where we are going to have to change focus, meaning we cannot just focus on the Dutch market anymore. If we want to go internationally, we have to have a dedicated focus also on these other countries. And this was the decision moment for us to decide, okay, that's the moment we need to have a team, because then we can divide focus between the different um, services, actually, products. So I would say this is the moment that we decide, okay, we need more resources. It wasn't ever an engineering decision or a commercial decision or a like a resource cost wise decision. No, it was because we are going internationally. We need focus on two different platforms. That's why we need dedicated people on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually very funny that you mentioned that, because what we actually do is we help our clients to create product teams. So we say if you want to grow and you want to not overwhelm your leadership, you want to
Hmm.
create multiple product units or product teams, so you can divide the focus. And actually, what you're saying is exactly what we are trying to educate people on. Is
Hmm.
that if you want to really grow and you want to be able to scale up without too much overhead or
Hmm.
overload in your leadership team, you want to be creating multiple product units or teams.
So that's exactly what we do. Where my shift basically, it's kind of weird because as the CTO, basically, I have all the knowledge in me of the Netherlands as I built the whole technical product. However, we still decided that I should focus on the European development and still have another engineer taking over stuff in the Netherlands, which is, I think, feasible nowadays because the ramp up speed is very much smaller nowadays due to all the AI stuff we have available. So this ramp up is becoming less of a problem, which makes like puzzling who is going to do what easier. So that was a quite good like turnover point with AI, of course, and all the stuff together. We could easily say, okay, Michael, you focus on European platform. This guy, Dirk, his name is, will focus on the Dutch platform.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's an interesting decision because it shows that you let's say, delegated the known and you started to explore the unknown yourself. You
Correct.
didn't
Yes.
delegate the unknown and kept yourself in the known. And I
Correct.
think that's a great, well thought decision there. Because if you would like delegate the unknown, then it would stay unknown for you, and
Exactly.
the new team member would need to first understand what you are already doing, and then extrapolate that to the new
Correct.
market.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, you already took your knowledge to the unknown market, and you got someone to hold the existing market. So I
Yeah.
think that's a great decision.
I think it's quite the opposite of what other companies do often. Often when you grow to another country, often like the leadership stays on the focusing on the market that's generating the revenue, of course, as that is the big one. And they're taking account managers or they're placing country managers into certain new markets to focus on. Of course, it depends also on like what type of scaling it is. Is it like just the sales scaling across the border, or is it also just building a new product? That's of course it yeah, it differs. It makes the context a bit more
Yeah,
important.
and I'm very curious. Which countries are we talking about? Because I know you're in the Netherlands, but you're also in other countries.
Correct. Yes, we also operate in Germany, France, Spain, Italy, and the UK. Why we focus on these markets? These are the biggest real markets in Europe. And our end goal is really to help the European passenger to have a good travel experience. And by focusing on these countries, we are covering the large portion. So we see this shift going from short haul flights in
Mhm.
Europe
Yeah.
getting replaced by long train rides, basically. So, and to stimulate this, we need to, of course, also improve the customer experience of these people traveling around. And that's where we come in the European side.
Yeah, and I think your product, especially as we're looking at the same legal framework, then
Yes,
your product would automatically fit those different countries easily.
correct.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, so, what is your biggest challenge in scaling up?
Yeah. So, from a legal perspective, as you mentioned, it's quite unified. In Europe, we try to unify the rules a lot, and that's why it's quite nice that our rule we have in the Netherlands also is the similar in Germany. However, the technical systems are often different, and that's where we have to aggregate and unify data sources from multiple countries, which are all in different formats, and they are not always that up to date, making it harder for us to go from it to roll out our product from a technical perspective. What we tend to see is that Netherlands is a low margin market for us with low ticket values, but a very good digital environment to build products in general. I think it's the case for a lot of stuff we have in the Netherlands. However, if we go to Germany, we see we have high ticket prices, higher amounts of disruption. However, a lot less digitalization, meaning it's also harder for us to implement our product there. So there's also this problem, of course, in the Netherlands versus the other countries. But I would say that the biggest issue we have with scaling at this stage is making sure the technical systems are correct. But we are managing it quite well. So at this stage, what we do, we track every single train in the Netherlands, in France, in Germany, every 30 seconds. And this data, we archive this, and then we can run an algorithm later on to detect which train ride you took and how much delay you have accumulated.
Oh wow, wow, that's super cool. Sounds like a cool tech challenge. I'm a
Yeah,
technical guy myself, so I get excited by hearing such challenges.
yeah,
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so and in terms of impact, so if we're talking about impact, it sounds like Germany is a very an interesting country to make more impact. So
correct.
how do you balance between impact and profit and your roadmap? How do you
Yes.
choose?
So we are really in it for the long run, meaning we don't want to just be this transactional company who you go to for when you have a delay. We want to support the traveler in a broader way. This is our end goal. This is our north uh, pole star, North Star, basically, we aim for. So that also means that as we have this larger vision, which is not bound to the Netherlands, we have to make the choice: are we able to spend the money that we earn from our cash cow, basically, which is the Netherlands, to do this European growth? And therefore, the impact is more important to us than the revenue at this moment. And we don't mind taking a long breath, basically, to build these countries. Because often you see, if you want to do it correctly, you need to do one country at a time and really focus on that country. And we're now focusing on 5 different countries. So that's why the breath we have to take is quite long.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
but however, the return, if we are able to manage to help more customers in Europe, the reward will also be bigger. So it was really a turning point. Or we stay in the Netherlands and we build this company and we just make it, we try to maximize the margins and lower our costs. And then we would have a great cash cow there. That could be an option. But we decided, no, we are going to hire a team. We are going to basically generate loss just so we can grow in this international sector.
Yeah, super interesting. And is that the KPI you're tracking?
So the KPI we track is basically, from a technical perspective, can we set the system up? And from a revenue perspective, at what point are we going to generate this money, basically? So we have, of course, we cannot do this forever, of course. So we need to have some point where we see traction coming in from these other countries. So that's basically the
Of
where we
course.
are working towards.
In the end, you need to keep the lights on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. Michael, I enjoyed our conversation a lot,
Thank
and
you.
I think our audience will enjoy this conversation too. So I think they would like to follow you to see where you end up in the journey, how many countries you will help to make the traveling by train more comfortable and better doable. So where can we follow you?
We are quite active on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, my name is Michael Hillhorst, and my co-founder is Daan. But we tend to post on my LinkedIn often. So we try to let people see behind the scenes. What are our struggles? Where do we accomplish stuff? But also what stuff related to trains. So basically, these 3 points we try to share as much as possible. So feel
Yeah,
free to follow.
beautiful. Thanks a lot for the conversation, and we will chat soon, probably.
Thanks. Thank you.